This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so I want to welcome everybody to our inaugural IxDA webinar. For the past 10 or 12 years, we've been doing these in person, and it's certainly something that we miss doing. I think that making those in-person connections is a great thing. It's allowed me to meet literally dozens and dozens of people here in Chicago, that I'm great friends with now. But the situation is what it is, and so we've shifted gears like pretty much everybody has had to do, and are giving this webinar a try. So just a couple of quick tips, and I think again we have a pretty tech savvy audience here, so everyone I think is has their audio and video off. What we're going to try and do is in between each of the three presentations is have a 5-minute question session. So we'll have people send a chat message, and then I'll sort of reiterate the question to the presenter. We're recording everything, as you probably just heard. And again, just feel free to use the chat and connect. At the end of everything, we'll sort of leave the meeting on. I'll turn the recording off, and folks can chat if you want to make some great introductions. So again, if this is your first IxDA event, welcome. If you've supported us for many years, again, thanks for the support as we move forward and give this a try. And again, assuming that we're successful with this, we'll try a bunch more of these until it is safe to meet up in person again. So I usually start off, and we usually start off by just giving a quick introduction of what this event is going to be about. And the topic tonight is really online UX research, and how to select the best tools that are remote tools for your objectives. So we have iTracks, Optimal Workshop, and Vidlet joining us for this event. Just some quick announcements before we get into the excitement. So we always try to promote some other local IxDA, local meetup groups that are UX related. The UX Book Club is one of them, and they have, again, a webinar coming up on June 9th. So take a look and do a search for that. Their events are always great and really in depth. The Chicago Digital Accessibility and Inclusive Design Group always puts on really interesting events, and they have something that's June 9th as well. There's also a UX design camp that is coming up on a Saturday. So this is great, if you're kind of new to the field and you want to have a really in-depth Saturday to learn new skills and new tools. This is a great way to do it. I've only heard really good things about these events. And again, just our community, obviously, we're on Meetup, we're on Facebook. Our LinkedIn page is also reasonably active. So I've had folks post, there's still, the great thing is that UX design is not going away. Digital has become more important. So there are firms that are hiring, and I'm directing them when they get in touch with us to post stuff on our LinkedIn page, which is, I think, a great venue. So if you're a member of the Meetup group but not on the LinkedIn page, feel free to join the LinkedIn page as well, as it's a great resource. There are 4 of us who are leading the organization: Sam, Nicola, the other Sam, Mr. Spicer, and myself. Again, anytime, folks, if you have an idea for a webinar or an event, feel free to get in touch with any of us. We'd love to team up with you. So now on to our introduction. So, you know, for those of you who haven't met me or who don't know what I do, my focus is, you know, UX research. So incorporated into that is usability testing of everything from mobile apps to websites to medical devices. We also run lots of focus groups. We do ethnographic research, and probably 70% of our work is in person. So we've had to shift. And, you know, it was a really quick shift where we had a project that, you know, about 3 or 4 days before the project, we realized we could not do this in person. And so everyone canceled flights, and we figured out how to run one-on-one interviews via GoToMeeting. And it turned out great. So one of the points I want to make is as we talk about these different topics, and again, I know most of us are tech savvy on this call. There are a lot of people maybe in senior leadership positions who have said, well, you know, we can't do research because all the focus group facilities are closed. Not true. So I want to make that point. You know, I've heard people say, well, it's really difficult to recruit people now because the focus group facilities are closed. Again, not true. The focus group facilities who, you know, and the folks who we team up with to do the recruitment have had a pretty, you know, pretty easy job of recruiting people because everyone is at home. So, you know, the changes that we're going through are, I think, making in-depth research more important because we really need to know, and companies really need to understand what is going on. And while, you know, quantitative research is great, it's a nice to have. The type of UX research that I think a lot of us are familiar with is a more in-depth interview where, you know, you want to find out why and really get the details on how people are making decisions, what their attitudes are, how they're using a particular interface or product. So I think it's actually more important than ever to do really smart, you know, on UX research and qualitative research because it's going to help us, you know, learn and shift very rapidly during this environment. Um, so, uh, so without further ado, and I'm going to sort of introduce the folks that we're going to have. So Dan Weber, who Dan and I have literally been working together and teaming up. I think I did my first online focus group with Dan, which didn't have video way back in, I think, the year 2000. So I'm dating myself, but we've been doing this for a long time and using the technology successfully. And Dan has been a great partner over the time. You know, Joel is at Optimal Workshop, who we've worked with for many years. And they started as UX design folks. And again, have a tool that Joel will present that really helps you figure out navigation issues, you know, card sorting issues, and it's a fantastic tool. And Patricia is the CEO at Vidlet. One of the things that I think people, you know, immediately thought is like, oh, we can't do ethnographic research anymore and actually see what people are doing. And again, I think that because of mobile, because it's easy to do video these days, Vidlet has created a platform that allows you to do that in a fantastic way and capture video, capture text, edit the videos, and get a sense of what people are actually doing, you know, in situation. So, so all three of these folks are going to educate us on their tools and how they're being used given the environment that we're in. So we're going to start off with Dan, and I am going to get out of the presentation here. Whoops. Is, so All right, so Dan, let me know if you now have screen control here.
Not yet.
So I gave it to iTrax Weber.
Just still requesting. Still says now viewing Lon's screen. Maybe. Do you see my request, Lon?
Yep. Yeah, I do. Let me see how I can make you the presenter here.
Are you able to just change the presenter to myself?
Yeah, I thought I was. Let me just say. Let's do this.
Lon, you're also able to elevate me in the attendees.
To organizer.
Yeah, to organizer.
Let's see how we can do this here.
Under the screen tab,
My
there's
wife don't have to join me.
under the screen tab, there's it looks like a monitor. If you click on that circle monitor, does it allow you to select a new presenter?
Yeah, I thought I was going to be able to do.
I don't want to go first anymore.
Oh, here we go. All right, so let's see if that works.
Hey,
All right,
we got it.
All right, so now I know how to do this by going into that other area.
Awesome. Right. Well, thank you, everyone. Sorry about that. And thank you, Lon. Yes, I drew the short stick and went first, but I know I have a strict timeline, and we also want to hear from Patricia and Joel, so I'll try to be brief. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for coming. I know it's later in the day for some of you, and I certainly appreciate you sticking around to listen to some of this. Hopefully everyone has a glass of wine or a beer, and they can listen in. It was about March 15th, and the phone started ringing. We are an internet-based market research firm, and of course, when you have what is typically about 85% of all qualitative research is done traditionally in-house, and you can no longer do that. Obviously, things need to move elsewhere, and so we became very busy very fast. Many challenges associated to that. One was obviously there's a significant move from the traditional to online, but secondly, many inquiries about website and website testing as people, a significant portion of their sales and just education, marketing was taking place over their websites. So a big push in that platform. So I thought it was great timing. Lon asked me to join you today, and today I really wanted to talk a little bit more about a methodology than actually tools itself. I want to talk a little bit about utilizing Web Intercept to assist with the UX research. So just briefly again, let's see if I can who we are. We're iTracks. We're located in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. You may have recognized my accent, and if you catch me saying a few times, you'll realize that's because we are here right in the middle of nowhere up in Saskatoon. We have been around for a while, as Lon pointed out. We're incorporated in '96, really focusing on software for the market research industry. We specialize in some mobile pieces and parts and advanced video-based research, and we have a full suite of qualitative platforms for doing online. Let's talk about Web Intercept when it can be used. So it really is quite flexible. It's with anyone who interacts with the website. At any point in which a customer or a consumer is looking at a website, we can initiate a request to participate in a qualitative exercise based on an action or a reaction to a website. Now, this is really important. Obviously, in working with your clients, what is keeping them up at night as it pertains to people using their websites? You sometimes can gain statistics, information, often in bulk and in quantitative pieces and parts, but sometimes, as Lon pointed out, we're missing the why, and this is where, based on those actions that your clients choose, we can move them to a real-time qualitative exercise. So using APIs, we can take them immediately to a qualitative exercise where you can begin getting that in-depth feedback that you're looking for. So some examples of use, one that's come up quite often just in the recent weeks, shopping cart abandonment. So why are people leaving my website right at that point? Maybe they're using search functions more often than you'd hoped. Maybe it's not intuitive in terms of how they're navigating your site. Maybe you want to talk to them after they've completed purchases. Is there a way we can further engage them? Can we get good feedback from the people that are having success on our website? Often there's a rating service, and maybe there's a quantitative part of that, but based on their answer, maybe we can then jump them to a qualitative piece. So maybe the people out of 5 that are choosing 1 and 5, you can split that off and have all of your group of people that are rating 1s, talk to them individually as well as those that are rating 5s, and then maybe failed registration. So really anything that your website or your client's website is set up to do, we can test in a qualitative exercise now. So why is this important? I think the big part about this is it's the real person experiencing the site at that time. Often we are recruiting people, asking them to recall an event, and there's a number of statistics and research itself that talks about how people's perception of what took place is often different than reality. When we can capture someone in that real event, we can actually have them say, okay, well, show me what was wrong or where you had some problems. It does some other things, though. It removes, the overhead of recruiting. If you know it's the person that's failing at purchasing when they're abandoning their cart, that's the person we want to talk to, and that's regardless of whether they're male, female, age groups, that type of thing. We can capture that later as part of the research, but it's the people that are missing that point that we want to talk to. I talked a little bit of shifts from recall to actual, and we can show them that, this is where I failed. And there's some flexibility as well. We can take them into something, either a short or long-term engagement. So we can take them right to a video interview and talk to them in that environment, have them show their screen, or we can take them to something like a bulletin board exercise where they maybe engage in a discussion amongst peers, and they can be part of a longer engagement, maybe an actual design element where we're bringing back beta sites to them and saying, well, what about this? Is this an improvement on what you experienced? So with that, I'm just going to run you through a brief demo, and let's hope this works. So imagine this is your, can everyone see a bunch of shoes? Or Lon, someone speak up?
Yep, all good.
Okay, good, good. So imagine this is your website or your client's website, and they're going through a purchasing process, and they're clicking around. No, I don't want that one. You know, maybe I like these DC shoes, but I'm just about to purchase it and I cancel it. So this will be the trigger point in which your client has set up and says, listen, we want to talk to these people in a qualitative engagement. It pops up a request asking if they'd like to participate. They say yes. This is when it jumps us through using APIs to a qualitative setting. I have actually set this up from a researcher standpoint as opposed to participant, but you can see it jumps us over to our software. I can log in, and I'll show you 3 examples of where this can take us. So we can bring people directly into a bulletin board environment. And so in a bulletin board environment, that's what I talked about, a threaded chat discussion. So it'll take me in and it'll actually have the questions presented. So in this case, I've set up a little bit of a responsive design questionnaire. And so maybe they've gone through your website and you want to talk to them about each of that website and whatever experience they're at. So this is my website in this I'm set up on, looks like I'm in a laptop. I could actually scroll through it, what it looks like, you know, choose where I would have normally navigated. I can switch to a tablet and present. It does look like I need to do a little bit of UI on my own website, but and a mobile device. So in this environment, so this is just one exercise, but you can set up a whole bunch of different exercises. So you can use a whiteboard to display data websites. You can have them respond. So myself as a participant, I could then respond in a number of different ways using either video or text to kind of go through an exercise. Now, most cases when they're doing these types of research, it's usually over time, and it's usually 2 or 3 days. So if you have something where it's iterative or you want to go back and redesign things, this is a great platform for doing that. So going back to other options where you can jump directly to something. We also have a text chat, and this is what Lon had used many years ago. It's been redesigned a couple of times since then, but it's actually a text-based discussion board where I can actually people can display messages, information to me. I do have a gentleman on the other end. I'm in the waiting room right now. And it says I'm joining the room. Oh, there's Troy. Hi, everyone. This is Troy. So you could have a moderator in this environment and actually asking questions to the people who've experienced something again on your website. In this case, he can show us web pages. I can give feedback. And we can have a discussion back and forth with regards to what you want to display. Now, this is a website that can be loaded in this portal here. So it could have any type of additional software applications. So I'm going to rate this a 4. Again, just kind of a really flexible tool for doing things in real time. And more of a structured environment for displaying and getting feedback on exactly what that person's experience was. I am going to show ID. So I'm just gonna log out of this now, and I'm just gonna show you the final option for doing some real-time qualitative. So in order to do this, I'm just going to, I'm maybe gonna stop my webcam because I don't want it to conflict with our own software, and we'll see if we can make this work. So I'm gonna stop sharing this. So this is our IDI software. It's going to try to pick up my camera and phone. And so you can see that I joined here. And so again, I can jump. Hi, Troy, how are you?
Very good.
For sure. So very briefly, because I want to make sure it's all working right now, so I want it to keep working. So this is where I think it gets exciting. We can move now, if someone has had a poor experience, we can jump them immediately into a discussion with an operator or a researcher, and then you can begin that process, and he can request to share screens, he can show us some more information and details, but it's just a really great way to interact with that client who's having some sort of experience on your website. Another nice part about this is your client can watch or observe in the background, so they can see what's happening while this is taking place. And again, there are other tools to do all this, but the important part here is that we're connecting them directly from that website experience into a qualitative tool that can work in that environment. So I don't want to take up too much time. That's really kind of what I had planned for the demonstration. I'm just gonna thank you, Troy, and I'm gonna let you go, and then I'm just have a few more slides, and then I'm gonna move it on to Patricia and Joel. Yeah. Bye. So there's, if everyone can still see my screen, there's really 5 main products you can connect to using the Web Intercept application. I've shown you 3, but we can, if you have more questions about the phone IDI, and there's also just a video chat application as well as a group. So why choose Web Intercept as an application? It provides many different options for testing. It captures those people in real time. Ultimately, because you're not having to recruit, it's saving you some time and money. And then, as Lon mentioned before, we're getting to the why parts of the user experience. So, with that, I will harbor any questions.
Great, thanks. Thanks so much, Dan. So if you do have a question, you can post it on the chat, and I will refresh it, and everyone should be able to see the chat. So, all right. So our first question is there a way to compensate people easily through the platform? That's a good question, because even if you do intercept people, at the sort of, the immediate time of, as they're using something, you still want to give them a thank you for spending their time. And even if it's 15 minutes, I think that that's a smart way to do business. So Dan, tell us, how you typically handle that.
For sure, and that is actually a really good question, and one that we've thought of. We use software tool called Ribbon, where we actually utilize immediate fulfillment or payment after the event, so we can send them a gift card immediately after. And it's interesting because they have a wide range of gift cards and options. We can even use PayPal as an option as well. But some of our clients who are grocers they actually are part of the system. So that's one thing I would encourage. If it's a large enough client or they have their own gift card system, we can deploy it through that process and give them something back right away. So that way it's feeding feeding back to the client.
Great. Any additional questions? So what? Someone may be typing, but one of the things I wanted you to also mention was like bulletin boards. We've used them as well. And the nice thing is that you can stay in touch with people over multiple. So let's say that you're doing something that's like a prototype,
Yep.
and it might be for an internal use,
Yep.
at a company. That's what we've used the bulletin boards for, because it's in an enclosed environment. It's not being seen by the public. So maybe just elaborate a little bit on that, and I'll read some of the other questions here in a minute.
Yeah, most certainly. So what Lon's referring to is the bulletin board product, where again, perhaps it's something that's not live. It's something that's structured, but you may still want to pull from your live environment to a new, this new environment. And that's where you can set up basically your exercises, have your demo sites ready to review. And in that environment, you can have people go through those exercises on a much longer basis. And sometimes we even see the engineers or the designers going through iterations and saying, okay, come back tomorrow and then let's look at it again and review in that environment. And we can be building things like Patricia's and Joel's software into those exercises as well, in that kind of holding center place where that takes place.
Great. We have a compatibility question about different browsers and environments. Any constraints or restrictions that you've seen?
Yes. Right now it works best in Chrome and Firefox, but lots of that can be built on the client side before you send your request. So the API is only triggered after it reads the protocol that has been established by the user. So in that case, right now, it might ask, sorry, that would be just for the video focus group. The bulletin boards, everything else that I showed and displayed today would be utilized in all standard browsers. But the video is a little bit more finicky. And so the best for that is Chrome and Firefox. But once again, that could be established prior to the ask.
Okay, great. And then we have a question from Michelle. How can you export or analyze the data that you're collecting? Is there any quantitative data captured, even if it's sort of light quantitative? And
sure,
I think that's
sure. Yes. In each of the products, there's polling tools and applications, and so that's all downloadable as part of the exercise. If you're on a very busy website, you could move hundreds of people to an exercise like this. So it's really quali-quant, and you can build in then from there quantitative exercises. So you could actually go to a link, maybe to a Qualtrics or some other application, and then take more quantitative data in that space. But our tools inherently have some polling applications as well.
Yep. And Raheem has a question about how the information is conveyed back to the client. Maybe a chart with activity and results. And I think that's where the researcher comes in, whether they're moderating or just they're quantitative or qualitative researcher. I think that with any of these tools that we're presenting and talking about, there's got to be a step where you have sort of smart research folks that are looking at this on a regular basis and taking the time to aggregate the data, and put it into a format that really works for you and your particular needs. And again, I've found, and I've been on the phone with everyone here in terms of the platforms, that whenever we have questions and we say, okay, a client wants to look at the data this way as the end result, it seems like we never have any issues doing that. There's so much information, and we can format it in a way, and we'll kind of know going in that if it is quantitative, you need to have 100, 200 people doing something. But for the most part, the qualitative is being captured, it's being videotaped, and there's some translation tools. And again, it's up to the researcher to really aggregate all this and put it together in a format that makes sense.
For sure. Yep.
So, all right, great.
Well, thank you, everyone. I'll pass off.
Thanks so much, Dan.
I'm just going to turn my camera off and let everyone else go.
Awesome. All right, so Joel, you are up, and hopefully you are able to get access.
Yeah,
all right.
Awesome.
There we go. That was easier.
Cool. Yeah, it looks like you learned there, and that sharing came through really easily. So, yeah, thank you so much, Dan, first of all, for going through the technical troubles of getting the sharing to begin with there, and also showing us about that tool. That's really incredible. I know that recruiting participants is like one of the biggest headaches for researchers out there. So a tool that allows you to get access to people in real time who are actually using your products, so you don't have to get proxies that are similar to but not quite the right people, is really, really incredible. And having sort of a variety of things that you can put people to afterwards, super, super nice as well. So I'll definitely be sharing your tool with some of the researchers here at Optimal Workshop to see if that's something they might be interested in. Very cool to see. All right, hello to absolutely everybody. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Joel, as you introduce yourself, I also want to have you tell us where you're calling in from and where you are located.
Definitely. I've got a slide deck prepared to go through all of that, so it's very exciting. Hey, everybody who's on the call, wonderful to be here. I absolutely love being a part of sort of industry events like this and getting to share what I and we at Optimal Workshop are very passionate about. And today we're going to be taking a little bit of a deep dive into card sorting. So one of the specific methodologies that we offer here. So just in terms of what we'll be talking about, I've got a few points laid out here. First of all, we'll take a little bit of brief moment to talk about who Optimal Workshop is and where we are. And then we'll really dive deep into sort of card sorting. So what is that? How do you set it up? What can you expect to get as results? And then a few examples of other use cases that can be used, because it very frequently get used for information architecture, but it can be deployed in lots of different ways depending on sort of the research outcomes you're looking to learn more about. So first of all, who are we? Well, Optimal Workshop, we are all of the wonderful folk that you see down in the GIF there. These are not corporate models. These are the wonderful people who either build the tools or help interface with customers, and great people in the UX industry alongside myself. We like to say that we're a startup, but we've been around since 2007, so I don't know if that still counts, but it's definitely part of the mentality and culture we have across our business, which is fantastic. And that cutie down in the bottom right-hand corner is Bowie. He's our CEO's Labrador, and he likes to come on in, I guess, when we're allowed to be in the office and keep everybody entertained, which is always a nice little bit. And who am I? Why am I here talking to you today? Well, I'm Joel. I am the head of customer success at Optimal Workshop and work hands-on with the largest companies who we work with, which is really exciting because it gets to mean that I talk with a lot of fantastic researchers and help them figure out how to deploy our methodologies to get them the answers that they're looking for. And I absolutely love being there and working in that space. Now, we're located in New Zealand. I was quite excited to find a world map that has us on it. Sometimes we're missed off as a country entirely, but we do exist, I promise. And if you don't know too much about New Zealand, we're located in Wellington. Wellington is the capital city of my country, and it's also my sort of home city as well, where I'm from. I'm super proud of my city. I absolutely love it. This is a view from one of sort of the popular hill walks around the town. And as you can see, it's very green and very blue and beautiful, but it doesn't actually always look like that. We maybe get 2 weeks of the year where it's like that, and the rest of the time it's much like this, especially as we're heading towards winter in the southern hemisphere now. So yeah, feel free to close down that WebJet page that you've got open. It's not always as beautiful as it looks there. Cool. So while I'm going to talk mostly about card sorting and optimal sort today, that's one of 5 tools that we offer. So just as a quick heads up, we do offer some other products. Some of them are still about information architecture. So TreeJack is a sort of validation tool to make sure that with the site structure you've got, people can find the content that you need them to be able to. Chalkmark is a first-click testing tool, which makes it easy for you to get really rapid feedback on sort of the early designs or layouts that you're considering. It's not meant to replace or rival usability testing at all. Nothing will ever do that, but this is sort of early on in the process to make sure you're moving in the right direction and get feedback about what's going on. We also have a survey tool. Probably don't need to preach too much about the value of surveys while I'm talking to UX folk. But we also have Reframer, which is a qualitative note-taking tool, a great companion for those usability tests or customer interviews. It's got a nice sort of coding feature to allow you to add tags and metadata so that if you're doing note-taking with a bunch of different people, they've all got different styles, you can sort of keep the sentiment in like a steady line of meaning that's consistent no matter who's taking notes and how they do it. And we can also help out with some recruiting as well when you're using our quantitative tools here. Cool. So with all that sort of said and out of the way, let's get right down to business with optimal sort. So this is probably our flagship tool. If people have heard of us before, it's probably because of optimal sort. And optimal sort is this card sorting digitized pretty much. Card sorting is a pretty well-known methodology. It's been used by lots of different sort of industries and fields, but it's really fantastic for user research when it comes to making sure that the labeling and grouping of content that you have makes sense for your participants. Now, for any designers we might have on the call, this tool is probably not going to be your favorite or the thing that you'd like to use first, but it's still very useful. When you're figuring out taxonomy and the language that people use to understand and what they think when they interpret certain language that you use, it's really, really beneficial. I like to kind of use the analogy that getting good taxonomy is like setting up the great foundation for your house. It's not flashy, it's not beautiful, but once you've got that right, everything else builds on top of it really, really nicely and make sure that the visual elements that you want to add in addition to the text and content you're supplying is going to be supported by something that makes sense and is understandable to everybody who's going to be using that. And as you can see from the GIF here, this is a little bit about the participant experience. You can see they've got a list of content or the cards we've provided them on the left-hand side, and they're able to use either pre-existing categories to drop that content into or create their own and kind of give you information about that. Like I mentioned before, it's quite flexible and it's got lots of different use cases. But for now, I might sort of just jump into what it looks like to set up an optimal sort study and give you a few sort of tips for if you do want to use this type of methodology about what might be useful to consider. So fingers crossed this works. All right, fantastic. Cool, and I'll zoom in because I know that sometimes video sharing can make things a little bit smaller for everybody else. Cool, so when you're doing a card sort, one of the first things that you're going to want to do is set up all of the cards that you're working with. And this is the content that you'd like to supply to your participants. It's really simple. You just detail it out here either by adding individual cards and typing it out. But if you've already got this content set up somewhere else, you can import that really quickly and shortcut this part of establishing your test. We also know that sometimes short description of text is not the best or what you want your participants to be working with. So we've got some lovely features. The first is to add tooltip descriptions if you need to maybe demystify some jargon that you've provided, or make sure that the various groups that you want to recruit have the same level of information before providing their sort. This is a nice way to keep everybody informed. And as mobile native platforms has become more and more popular, we've noticed that image sorting with your cards is becoming more and more prevalent, whether that be testing sort of images you might want to show across your marketing site or your homepage, or working on what icons are, or how icons, are being understood by your participants. Obviously, if you've got much smaller real estate on a screen, icons are a really nice way to not provide lots and lots of text. You can just upload these from your local files really easily, meaning that you can hit whether that be text or images to be sorted and learn about those mental model your participants have. Now, after that, the categories tab is going to be really important. And that's because this has a really big impact on the type of methodology you're running inside of card sorting. So it's still a card sort, but it kind of changes from exploring to validating on a scale there. So an open card sort, as you can see, it's really simple. There's absolutely nothing that you can edit on this page. But it also means that you're going to get many, many new ideas from your participants. So if you're looking to generate new ideas, or maybe your personas that you're working with have changed drastically, or the content has shifted quite a lot that you're looking to supply, this is a great way to design in collaboration with your participants and make sure that you're seeing all of the views and finding out what's going to resonate best with the largest group of your participants. Closed card sorting, on the other hand, is the validation end of the scale I mentioned before. You predetermine every single one of the categories that you provide to your participants, and in that way you can test the current headings that you're looking to use, or test iterations of how the language might change and whether or not that provides a more consistent sort response by large groups of participants. Closed card sorting is often where we see those other use cases come into play, whether that be sort of top task analysis or sentiment analysis by detailing sentiments in here and having cards, whether they be text or images allocated into them. We had a few people describe doing that with images as allowing their participants to create mood boards, which I thought was really interesting. So if you ever wanted to have participants do something similar to what they might create in Pinterest, that's a really cool way to understand how they group things and what sort of attachment they might give to those groups that they've created. Now, hybrid card sorting is sort of, this moves on the scale of generative to validation. You get to predetermine some categories, but participants can also create their own as well. And it's going to be closer to exploration if you've only got 1 or 2 categories. If you detail 8 or 9, you're going to get much more sort of validation results, because people are going to maybe not need to create as many more, but it sort of unlocks a few edge cases where maybe you think you're good to validate, but you'd like to see new ideas, or you're looking to explore, but you've got some project constraints around these must be provided as certain categories as sort of a business dictation for your project there. Really nice blend and can be deployed in a few different ways. Now, the rest of the tabs are relatively straightforward. I will go into the questionnaire one in a little bit more detail, just because this also gives you a lot of options for what information you can get from your participants. So obviously having a screener is really, really nice. Going out to a broad audience, but being able to define them to make sure that they do meet your requirements and are valid for the study is super important. Great insights rely on great participants, so this is a good way to filter them down. And you can add multiple screening questions, add logic either to send them straight to the study or have them take another question to make sure they do fit. But after that, we have the pre-study questions, and just below that, the post-study questions. This is really nice because it allows you to either collect demographic information, initial thoughts about the topic you're looking to discover, and the pre-study questions. These will all show before the main part of the methodology, in this case, the card sort itself. And then the post-study questions, I'm sure you probably guessed it, but these will turn up after the card sort is completed. And it's a great time to dig further into anything that might require the context of what's provided in the card sort, or even drill down about how easy or difficult the process of completing the card sort was by the participant as well. So yeah, this is going to allow you to sort of explore, like what Dan was mentioning, the why, maybe not in the same sort of visual way where you get to talk to the participants. The card sort information will give you the what, and the questionnaire information can help you dig a little bit deeper out further things you'd like to explore inside of that study. Cool. So now that you've got a reasonable idea of how to set up a study, let's take a quick look at what a participant experiences and then dig right into the results that you'll get to see at the end of that as well. So this is sort of just a typical project that you might see with Optimal Sort. Nothing too special about it, but really commonly used across our platform. The project here is to improve a legacy information architecture with the main objective there of establishing the best format of how that top level content should be structured and labeled. So by clicking on this link here, we're going to be taken through to the study. This is the participant experience. Getting participants to take an Optimal Workshop study is really simple. Basically, all you need to do is provide them the link that'll take them through to this page here. There's no download required. They don't need to create an account. We don't collect any PII about them, so there shouldn't be any security or privacy issues there. It's really simple and easy for them to take part. Give them a welcome message, some instructions on how to take part in the study, and all of that is editable inside of the tool that we were looking at before. I just didn't dig into it too much, but if you need to specify something specific for the use case you want to drill into, it's a nice way to provide full context to what the study's going to be. And then from there, we've got the cards. So this will look very much similar to the GIF that you saw before. Just by clicking using the mouse or using your finger on a mobile device, you can drag cards around and sort of create those groups that you think make the most sense, and in that way sort of express what your or your participants' mental model is going to be. And here we go with the cards that I had available. This is what I think makes the most sense. I'm going to give them some names. So we might say extra information, and then this one's got the word lunch in it twice for 2 different cards, so we'll give it that one. And at this point, the participant can click finished. If you've got any post-study questions, that's where they'll appear. I didn't for this study, so we passed through to our thank you message. I've added a nice GIF for a little bit of flavor here, but I'm just going to click to take us through to the results. That's not automatic or going to happen for your participants if you use our tools at all. It's just really nice for me doing the presentation here to have that teed up immediately. But it is great if you're working with a third-party panel, or if you want to send participants to a different study type, whether that's in our tools or somewhere else. It's a great way to chain it together and make it sort of a unified experience for your participants. Now, what we are looking at here is results for a card sort. As you can see, we've got a lot of different ways to visualize and dig deeper when you're analyzing this information. And that's because this is an open card sort, so it's kind of exploratory in nature. And there might be a few different ways that you want to dig into it and kind of learn more to help you with your research insights. So first of all, I mean, I should probably reference this. The participants table, important to be aware of. Obviously, we're quantitative, so all of our analysis are driven by the results that you've received. Checking participant quality can be really important. So by clicking on a link here, we can learn where they took it from, how long it took them. All of their pre and post study questions have answers here. And then, for example, we get to see the mental model that this participant created. And they thought about it in 2 different boxes, which are generally quite broad, as we can see here. After that, we've got the questionnaire tab. So this is the responses to all of the questions you've asked in pre or post study. Really nicely shown in bar charts for any of our close-ended questions. And with open-ended questions, we've got the ability to sort of scroll through the answers, as well as search out keywords if there's something specific you want to look for or highlight to anybody as well. Then after that, we've got cards, categories, and standardization grid. I love to introduce these three together because they're kind of what we call the language exploration view. You could spend so much time, like as much time as you wanted to or had available to dig into these. It's gonna, you get every single result by different participants, and it allows you to sort of figure out exactly what they mean with their submissions. The cards tab obviously is going to focus on each card and how that's treated. So we tell you what the card is, how many groups it's been sorted into, and you can expand this to find out what the labels were that participants submitted for it. And we've also got a frequency column there to show you what's popping up most frequently so that you're able to figure out what's really common and what's becoming most salient across the different people that you're working with there. Very, very useful, and I'm definitely a big fan of this page. The categories tab, on the other hand, sort of takes the reverse view. So it looks at the labels that were created and then gives you details about what's been included inside of that. So we've got the labels on the left-hand side by participants. It shows you how many cards are included, and you can expand that open to see what cards are included here. So that's obviously really nice if you want to drill down into what participants mean when they say a label name and what they include inside of that. But there's another use for this page, and this is really where people spend a bit of time exploring the information. You can standardize categories together, which basically means to group different submissions by participants to figure out how much consistency there is across their ideas. So if we're looking to drill down on a specific piece of content, so if we go contact us, which is one of the cards that I presented, we're only going to get results that contain that card, as you can sort of see here. From there, we might be able to select a handful of these submissions. 2 here will be enough, and standardize those together. We then get to see all of the cards that have been submitted on the right-hand side here, and all of the submissions by participants. So this allows you to find out, hey, where are the outliers, how strong is this idea, and how much agreement is there between the content that's been submitted. So I might notice that this card here has only been submitted 1 time, and I might want to explore for who that participant was and say, hey, if we remove them, how does that affect the agreement score? And so on and so forth. Let's see if we can get this over 40%. Okay, these 2 participants can be excluded, and we can see, nice, we've jumped over 40%. So that's a nice way to sort of balance how many people you're including here, so how strong this information is, versus the consistency of what's being supplied as well. And I can see another outlier here, so let's just find this guy and remove him. Nice. And now we got a little bit more agreement, and we might want to save that and create it. So it's now going to combine all of those together, and we've sort of got our mega category that's been submitted. Once you've done a little bit of work in there, you'll get to see how all of the standardized categories that you've created compare to each other, as well as the data that hasn't been standardized as well. And that's going to give you a good idea of, are there ideas that are competing against each other for similar content, or is there one strong idea that we're happy to move forward with? Cool. Now, after that, we've got the statistical views. These are a little bit easier to understand. They take the whole data set that you've been provided and crunch them with a nice little algorithm, removing a lot of the manual work that card sorting used to involve, and giving you really easy to understand insights. So the similarity matrix will focus on any 2 cards that you've given and show you how often they're grouped together. So for example, these 2 cards here are grouped together by 89% of our participants. That's really strong. These should probably definitely be grouped together inside of a category. Whereas this one here, meals for 2 people and skipping and cancelling, it's been grouped, but only 8% of the time. These should probably not be associated with each other inside of a category. And we gradient the cells that you've got here. The darker the blue, the stronger the association between the cards. So it is nice and visual as well. That information is built upon by the dendrogram, which is my second favorite view when it comes to open card sorting results. And this is going to show you where items are grouped together, or if they're not really associated with anything, and if subcategories should exist as well. So if we focus on this grouping here, we can see that all of the content that's highlighted green is grouped together with 26% confidence. But as we move further down, we can learn there's much more confidence about these two cards. This is also being included. So it's telling me, well, this could be one category. You could have two sort of distinct subcategories inside of that. And we do provide you two different ones. We've got actual agreement and best merge method. The difference between these is when you'd use them for different data set sizes. Best merge method works well for 30 or under, and it makes a few assumptions about the rest of the data you've received to kind of fill in the gaps, whereas this is fantastic. The actual agreement method is totally factual and works best with 30 or more participants that you've got. My number one favorite view for card sorting results is the 3D cluster view. This is really new and quite innovative. As you can see, we've got 3D space being rendered here. Each of the points is a card that we've got, and the polygons that are grouping them together are showing you the categories that have been made out of this. We can change this a little bit. So if we wanted to focus on 5 groups, we might set it like this, and we get to see the results if we were trying to create 5 groups for our content here. But we can also click on it and it will tell us exactly what's involved, the different names that have been submitted as well. And one of my favorite features is when you've got a mega category like this, we can click on it and then split that out, and it's really clearly going to show you those two were associated before, but you could also create subcategories which will really make them distinct from each other, and that's how it's been represented by our participants as well. So really nice to be able to see and show. And then the last page that I want to talk about here is the PCA, the participant-centric analysis. If you've got 2 minutes to analyze your card sort results, this is the page I'd recommend checking out. It shows you the most popular groupings that have been submitted. And again, you can change the group sizes that have been created here. We might go 4 to 11 here, and that's going to give us a different set from what we saw before, but please load. Now that we can see this, we can see just under half, 34 of our 70 participants have created 5 groups, and they look like this. Information with all of this content, meals with this content, and so on and so forth. These people are pretty detailed level thinkers. They've created more groups than what we saw on average. Then also with all of our information, all of our methodology, sorry, you can download the raw data, and you've also got the ability to share these results as well. So all of those visualizations we looked at, you can select them individually or in groups, update this, and then anybody that you share this URL with gets access to view exactly what you saw as the researcher as well. So if we head back to results and sharing, you'll now see this link, and that makes it really easy to give access to any stakeholders or team members on your project who might want to dig a little bit deeper into what recommendations you're making and why they're supported by your data. Cool, thanks for bearing with me. I know that card sorting results can be a little bit long-winded sometimes, but again, because they're sort of exploratory, there's lots of different ways to crunch that data. What did we learn from that? Well, when I was reviewing this information, creating this demo here, it looked like there were 2 main content categories. We'd had information with all of this data, and then all of the products that were available to buy across the page. Sometimes were grouped all in one category, but were also commonly broken down into a little bit more detail. And sort of, you could run with that, or you might want to test it in a tree test to validate how that works in an actual live site as well. So I mentioned that I'll talk about a few use cases here, and that's what this page is for, as well as sort of a recap for what the results show you. So the most common use case for card sorting is information architecture. And it's sort of detailed open and hybrid and closed as the generative and validation methods that we've got there. But we very often see it being used as more of a business analyst, top task or feature priority ranking, what's most important and where would you want to focus your efforts for this research to see the most results come through. That sentiment analysis, or using a closed card sort, but instead of category labels, adding different sentiments for the options you're having sorted. If we've got any marketers on the call here, this tool gets used all the time for content auditing when it comes to finding out what's relevant, what might not be used by your new customers, if there are different ways of grouping that information. And another use case that I love talking about is being able to combine the quantitative tools that we offer with a qualitative aspect as well. I definitely find if you can cross and combine those two methodologies with each other, you're going to get a much fuller view of what's going on with your sort of research and understanding the different views about it. Usertesting.com is fantastic and has a nice little integration for using our tools there. But additionally, so you can jump on a GoToMeeting call, Zoom webinar, or anything like that, get the participant to share their screen as they're working through it. And if they're talking aloud and you're able to ask and prompt questions, it's a fantastic way to dig deeper into that why in a really organic, natural way. Okay, cool. So I guess at this point, does anybody have any questions about card sorting or Optimal Workshop in general?
Great. Thanks. Thanks so much, Joel. So yeah, we had a question about being able to filter things by, participants, age, role, and that's certainly one of the things that we've used it for. So, Joel, I'll let you sort of explain a little bit more about that.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, 100%. That not only is possible, but is most oftentimes absolutely essential to get the most out of your data. So I'll just jump back into the tool to sort of walk you through what that looks like. We've got this beautiful add filter button here, and that allows you to cut cross sections into your data. A lot of this is made possible by when you set up your study, asking those pre and post study questions. So if we look at question response, we might want to drill down into what age group people are fitting into and say that the answer is 30 to 45. We apply that filter, and then the results that we're seeing in here only include the participants who have responded with this option. And we can verify that by looking back at the participant page, and anybody who's got the blue tick in here is someone who submitted that as an answer. So we get to see that, hey, we are viewing a certain amount of our participants here, 39 of them match that filter compared to what we were seeing before. So a really nice way that makes it easy to view the results, breaking down into specific subgroups you might want to know more about.
Yep, great. That's a good explanation. And I know that when we've used this in the past also, one of the things that we were able to do is target two specific groups that were meant to go to the same website. And the client had a real big division between one group in the healthcare space and another group that was also in the healthcare space by job title and things like, did they have the ability to purchase something, their organization. So, you can create slightly different card sorting exercises for different groups of people as well, and then compare those. And you really find, again, the last time we used this, you definitely want to spend a decent amount of time digging into this data and give yourself the time to do that, because you'll really find a lot of either validation that your ideas are correct or that you need to move in a whole different direction. So all good stuff. I love this tool. I think it's a great way to really figure out how to make some smart decisions and get all kinds of data to present it to your team.
Awesome. And also just a shout out to Jack there. Thanks so much for the comment there. Warms my heart when people say things like that to me. So I really appreciate that. You've found lots of use for our tools across the different places that you've worked in the past. That's awesome to hear.
Great. Excellent, Joel. I don't think we have any additional questions, so we will move things along to Patricia. And I am going to make Patricia the presenter. And Patricia, let me know if our technology is working well for you.
Am I sharing my screen?
We can hear you, and we haven't seen your screen just yet.
How about now?
There we go. All righty, good stuff.
So let me switch to screen. Oops, slideshow mode. Well, you know what? If I can't, I need to move you guys out of the way. Sorry. In the meantime, so you can see my screen now, right?
We can. So you're good to go.
You know what? I'm just gonna leave.
The full screen is. I know it's right. You can click on the bottom of PowerPoint. And I don't know why they hide this. Right next to the thing that has the 4 boxes. It's just to the right of that. Click on the icon next to the 4 boxes on the very bottom of the
PowerPoint, but know what's going on. Making it worse. I think
there
I
we
got
go.
it.
All righty, we're in business.
All right, and you know what? Why probably I was struggling. So interesting. So my name is Patricia, and I'm going to talk about video in research. And Lon, when you had everyone turn the camera off, I was like really frustrated because I was hoping I could snoop around and see what everyone's doing. Because video is all about. So if you would actually see me right now, I took the opportunity, and that's probably why I couldn't find the PowerPoint button, and I had a Corona light and I had some chips, because that's what people do on video when they think nobody is watching them, right? And so at Vidlet, we do research using mobile video, and we snoop around people's homes. And PowerPoint. I'm gonna do it, I guess, one by one. So this is what a typical Vidlet study looks like. Lots of video. You see in between, you see Q1, Q2. So we ask people a lot of questions with video, and we ask them to show us a lot of things on video. Sometimes if you look very closely, you see people flipping the camera on there. And the way we do it is that people record themselves on their mobile phone. Relatively easy to do. And the 2 most important things we want to see in these videos is what they do and what they tell us and what they do. And 2 very important factors when we started Vidlet was we wanted the videos to be asynchronous. Because we wanted people to really be by themselves, record themselves in their home, in their environment, any time of the day. And we wanted it to be continuous because we wanted to pretend to be there. So we will watch a video and then we will follow up. And we want that to happen very seamlessly. And Lon, early on, you said, that when you heard about COVID-19, all of a sudden you couldn't fly anymore. For me, that reality already was very real even before COVID-19, because flying to interview people at home, in a hospital, around the world, just was already very expensive before COVID-19, and it's going to be even more expensive in the future. So one of the reasons we developed Vidlet, and even if we would fly, I like in-home, in-person research a lot, because it allows you to snoop around even more. But even then, you often come to someone's home and it looks very curated. Almost too good to be true. And so we wanted to kind of avoid that we get this curated experience when we come to people, and therefore use video with them recording themselves. Lon, you also mentioned focus groups at the beginning. I think we still like focus groups a lot. But what we don't like is when they resemble someone's living room. Then I'm rather in someone's living room than pretend that they are there. We also have, and you all know this if you are researchers, that people often follow the alpha respondent. And so there is something about focus group that just in my mind does not work. But the most important thing, I think, whether it's focus group, whether it's surveys, is that most of the time the people that show up are not the right folks anyway. And so with video, what we do a lot is that we ask people to tell us who they are and show us who they are. So if you do a Vidlet study, you have to prove that you have the device you talk about. You have to prove that you have experience with a car that you talk about. So we audition everyone even before we start a study, just to make sure that they are the right people. And I can tell you that if we send out a screener, we kick out 90% of the people that come in, because we see over and over again that they show up as the people that they are really not. They show up with different emails. They show up with, like Tom Hanks here, they show up with a mustache and sunglasses just to sneak into a study. But even worse is what we have seen on the client side. And that's why I like a lot of this video recorded stuff that we now all experience, is because we see the reality of video sometimes too. And like I said, I didn't like that we all turned off our cameras, because I would have liked to see everyone. But it does happen to us all the time that our clients say, no, we do not like a client of ours. And in this example, the pictures I show, this was an example from a study for a white goods company. And we clearly showed that their customer had the product we were supposed to research, or the experience. This was all about technology and white goods. And the participant could clearly show that he was the perfect candidate to talk about it. And yet the client thought that this participant did not look like they want customers to look. And does anyone have any questions? Otherwise, I know the questions are going on in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to go straight to a demo. Thank you. The alpha response is going to be part of my vocabulary. Yep, that's great. So I'm still sharing the screen. So I'm going to jump straight into a demo then. So we have to move these buttons aside again. So this is what a typical Vidlet site will look like. And I mentioned that the participants will get a set of questions on their mobile phone. This is what it looks like on our end. So this is a study for an insurance company. And if anyone has any concerns about data protection and me showing videos and names of people, all these people have released their names and the right for us to share it, because that's very important to us. So a typical script has, like in this case, 13, 15 questions. And in this case, we launched the script and only have one participant that came in. Let me see why that doesn't show well. And so we saw that we had missed out on some opportunities in the questions we asked. So we simply send another set of questions. When the questions would come in, they look something like this, very messy video, right? Or if we go script by script and country by country, here you see also some scripts written in German and written in Chinese. So we can do a study in any language. when they come in, it looks something like this. When I open up these videos, I can go either by, like I said, one by one, or by question. Typically, there is a transcript. This also allows us to translate if we need a translation. We go video by video and then put the videos in playlists depending on the theme that we discover. These videos you can then edit down even further and really put together almost like a visual PowerPoint of themes, pain points, behaviors that you can easily share with other people. And the way we typically share them is that we either share a playlist or we put together a highlight video that is not done on Vidlet, but it's just one further step. We show you one of putting things together. So this is not showing participants, but you get a sense of what a highlight video looks like. Edited video, typically 2-3 minutes long, representing the participants.
The weather here in San Francisco is cold. It snowed.
And typically we show text on the left to explain the behavior and on the right to talk about who the people are. So that's pretty much it. Sorry, I was going back and forth, but that's pretty much it. Any questions?
Yeah, thanks, Patricia. I think that one of the great uses that that we see with this type of ethnographic research is that you can have people who are shopping at a grocery store. You can have people in their home. There's a variety of different settings, whether it's a work setting, a shopping setting, a play setting with kids. There's a lot of variety to this. And I think that it really does enhance, especially now, given that, it's real tough to do in-person ethnographic research, that there's enough savviness with people, even of all age groups, with their phones to really participate in this type of research, and you get fantastic results. I think one of the things with all this research that we're talking about online is that you do want to take the time to plan things out and create questions so that when we've done things that are sort of diary-based ethnographic studies where you're looking at maybe how someone cooks, and you do it over a series of a couple of days throughout the week, and you're asking people somewhat directed questions to help really get at the answers that you want. So again, there's fantastic uses for this tool that saves all kinds of money in terms of travel, lets participants kind of do it themselves with your direction. So I think it's a fantastic tool. Any questions from folks out there about the uses for this?
Yeah, Lon, you got me off track a little bit because I was seeing all the time that I had network connections. Obviously, that's sometimes also an issue with video, but one question people asked, like I mentioned earlier, we do continuous follow-ups, and what you can see here is that you can do one-on-one follow-ups with people, right? Not everyone has to get the same question. And I know in the earlier demo, people asked about payment. You can also pay people right away, which I think is a very important factor in the things that you mentioned, like diary studies. If you pay people, they will come back the next day, right?
Correct. I mean, I think that, you know, just in general, any research that is being done, you want to give people a positive reinforcement about your brand. So giving people an incentive is a great way to do that. You know, we've done diary studies where we had people who were being asked questions for an entire month, and you know, it was, I think, a $700 or $800 incentive. And you got half the incentive when you finished half, and you got the rest of the incentive when you finished the whole entire project at the end of the month. So, so again, it's, you know, these tools are fantastic from a research point of view, and it really enables you to gather all kinds of detailed feedback, have conversations with people, and aggregate data in a way that helps you make smart decisions. So we have a question about kind of the participant experience, and Patricia, maybe talk to that a little bit.
So it's interesting, that question. So we have been around for about 5 years, and in the beginning we had a lot of issues with the experience on the participant side, right? Because mobile wasn't that far along, video upload was challenging. I have not talked about the participant on the participant experience in a very long time, because it's now so seamless. But yes, people have to download an app, and there are reasons for that, why it couldn't just, I don't know, security, a whole bunch of issues. But we hardly ever have any issues anymore with the participant uploading video, understanding how it works. So they get a link, they download the app, they put in their username and password, and they get the clear instructions of what to do. And the nice thing with doing it that way is that even if they have bad Wi-Fi, within some parts of the world people still have, the videos will upload in the background.
Yeah, and I think that's, you know, it's a great question. I think that in all this research, you know, talking about recruiting and having the right participants participate in this is really important. You want to ask enough questions to really make sure that you have the audience that you're targeting. And again, that's all part of the planning process that goes into everything before you use any of these tools, and paying attention to that and doing good screening questions, whether it's just, you know, intercept screening questions, or whether you have a whole traditional screener with, you know, 20 or so questions. It's key to get the right group of people for these types of studies.
Yeah, I mean, we even did moderated interviews throughout the day today, and even then we give people first what we call a video audition, just to make sure that they are articulate, that they can maybe show us even their insurance policy, right? So to really understand that they're working with the right brand. So even when you do, let's say, in-home or moderated interviews, I think it's very helpful to screen people with video before. Yeah,
and I think the one thing that these tools enable is, in particular VidLet and iTracks, is follow-up with people who, have posted something, and they post something interesting, and you can follow up with them, by asking questions. And again, it just gives you more depth and more knowledge about the way people are doing something, or using a product, or using an interface.
Yep. I see one more question of someone asking about transcriptions. So right now, we mostly use Google to transcribe, but anyone can go in and we can submit the transcriptions for a hybrid to transcribe and translate if we need better quality, but that often happens outside of the platform and takes about 24 hours to get pretty decent translations and transcription.
Yeah, that's a great question. Patricia, talk a little bit about how many people are typical for the studies that you're doing? Is it, you know, a dozen people? Is it 100 people? What's your experience?
I would say it's probably very similar to doing in-home visits, right? 20 is probably a very good number. 15 is already good. 10 can sometimes be good. It depends a little bit on the subject as well. The nice thing about video is if we feel like someone's not really sharing the right experience, it's just a matter of deleting them, right? And finding another participant. It's not like you have to go back out, you have to go back on a plane, or you have to schedule your focus group again. It's very easy to add people as you go. So we often, for budget reasons as well, tell people to start with the least amount of participants they think they need.
All right, great. Any additional questions out there? All right, great. Well, Patricia, thank you so much. I know Joel had to jump off, and Dan and Garnett, if you're still on, thanks again for participating in this. One of the things that we do usually as we wrap up our events is ask folks to chime in if their organization is hiring. So, you know, if anyone is hiring, feel free to post something here, you know, on the chat. Tell us about what position it might be, and where someone might be able to get in touch with you who is out looking for a new gig. So give it a couple of minutes here to see if anyone does have any open positions. And again, everyone who's still on as well, feel free to get in touch with any of the three presenters if you do have specific follow-up questions. Certainly, you can follow up with me because we've experienced these tools and made use of them on many occasions. So there's a learning curve, but it's not exorbitant, and figuring these tools out, the more you get into it, the more exciting it gets, because you can point the research in a particular direction that you'd like to. So yeah, I'm not seeing any additional items on the chat, so I think that we are good to wrap up our inaugural webinar. And again, thanks for everyone for spending some time with us tonight, and we look forward to your ongoing participation in the IxDA, and hope to be able to deliver another great webinar for everybody in the coming weeks. So thanks again. Really appreciate everyone's participation tonight.
Thanks, Lon. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys.